Hello, doctors. I'm Dr. Chris Rapoff of QME Continuing Education, and welcome to this week's presentation. Today is the first of a two-part series of a study produced by the Workers' Compensation Insurance Rating Bureau of California in 2023, and it provides insight into the healthcare industry in the state of California. As you can imagine, the healthcare industry is a significant and growing part of California's economy and one of the largest sectors in the workers' compensation system. Its workers' compensation exposure covers a wide variety of occupations, ranging from physicians to nurses to home health aides, with differing average wages and levels of workers' compensation risks. Today we'll explore the demographics of this important sector of all the workers' compensation system. And next time, we'll discuss the loss and the payroll experiences within this industry sector as we investigate just who and what the drivers are affecting the cost of healthcare in California. First, these are the following sources I reference when producing this presentation. Feel free to copy and paste these links into your browser if you'd like to read more about the WCIRB and particularly the subject of today's discussion. The healthcare industry is one of the largest in California, with over 48,000 workers' compensation policies, and has operations in 5 distinct healthcare segments that provide medical care: physician practices, dental offices, hospitals, nursing facilities, and home health care. These segments generate 6% of all workers' compensation insurance premiums in the state. Now, in California's standard classification system, there are a number of classifications that encompass healthcare operations. In this report, the healthcare industry is categorized into 5 segments that provide medical care: physicians' practices, dental offices, hospitals, nursing facilities, and home health care. These segments are defined based on the locations of the services provided. The physician practices and dental offices segments provide outpatient medical services and comprise the majority of the workers' compensation policies for the industry, which you can imagine. The hospital segment includes both inpatient and outpatient services. And the nursing facilities and home health care segments may provide less medical care, but more physical assistance in short-term and long-term patient care than the other segments. Let's take a look at the historical advisory pure premium rates for healthcare industry versus statewide. And these are per $100 of payroll, as you see below. Now, pure premium rates are also known as a lost cost, and that is the amount of money that an insurer must pay to cover the claims, including the costs to administer and to investigate such claims. Overall, the average historical advisory pure premium rates for the healthcare industry have generally tracked closely with the statewide average and have been lower than the statewide average since 2009. The industry average are largely driven by the 2 largest segments, physicians' practices and hospitals. If you take a look at the numbers, though, that drastically changes from 2003 to 2022, the last year that they included in this survey. Now, as we look at the historical advisory pure premium rates for healthcare segments per $100 of payroll, we see that the home health care and nursing facilities have a higher per premium rate than other segments. It's potentially due to the lower average wage levels and the higher levels of hands-on physical assistance provided to the patients. Dental offices and physicians' practices have lower PPR rates than other segments. And the PPRs for the hospitals are double those of the dental offices and physicians' practices, but only 1/2 of those for home health care and nursing facilities. This is likely due to a mix of outpatient care and inpatient care, including physical assistance, as well as the clerical operations that are included in the hospital classification. Now here we see the healthcare industry versus the statewide payroll trend that was indexed to payroll year 2000. And the payroll ratio for each policy year is calculated as the reported payroll for each policy year divided by the reported payroll for the policy year in 2000. And historically, payroll for the healthcare industry has grown at a faster than average rate. In particular, when statewide payroll decreased during the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009, as you see, the healthcare industry payroll continued to grow. In payroll year of 2020, statewide payroll decreased by 4% due to its impact on, of course, the pandemic. And the healthcare industry, however, was less impacted with just a modest increase in payroll for that time, which we can understand. Now let's take a look at the payroll changes for healthcare segments, and I think you'll be surprised and maybe not. But home healthcare had the largest cumulative payroll increase from payroll 2010 to pay year of 2019. This was driven by a significant growth in the number of home health employers over the last decade, 74% growth. Now in 2020, despite the pandemic, home health care payroll growth accelerated. Hospitals was a relatively stable segment with the smallest cumulative payroll increase in the past decade. And in 2020, the hospital was the only healthcare segment for which payroll declined, reflecting a larger impacts of the pandemic, which was no surprise once again. Now, they also investigated the payroll shares by region for the healthcare industry versus statewide. And like many other industries, obviously, the highest concentration of healthcare industry payroll is in the San Francisco Bay Area and the Los Angeles Basin. The differential between the rural and urban area payroll shares is smaller for the healthcare industry than those for other industries, potentially because the residents and communities in the rural areas may have a more similar level of demand for healthcare services as those in urban areas. If you take a look though, San Francisco 11% and above versus statewide 9 to 10%. You go into Fresno from 2 to 3 to 1 to 2 for Fresno for statewide. And finally, San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara area 1 to 2%, and relatively the same for urban areas and rural areas as well. Now, as we take a look at the average weekly wages for the calendar year of 2019, the healthcare workers tend to have a higher than average weekly wage. You can understand that. But the employees of the physicians' practices, dental offices, and hospitals have higher wages, mostly due to a large share of high-wage occupations such as physicians, surgeons, registered nurses, and dentists. Now, a large share of the relatively low-wage workers of home health care and nursing facilities, such as care aides, leads to much lower average weekly wages in these segments. As you can see, physicians' practices over $2,000 per week, all the way down to home health care of $619 per week. And when we discuss the leading occupations by the share of healthcare segment payroll, this will encompass the next two slides, this one and the next. Now, nursing and care aides are the leading occupations for hospitals, nursing facilities, and home healthcare segments, and typically provide hands-on physical assistance. Doctors and medical support staff are the leading occupations for the physicians' practices and dental office segments. And many physicians and dentists at small clinics own their own business and may opt out of workers' compensation coverage, so therefore they may not be considered. As you see here, physicians' practices, the medical assistants, and physician surgeons are relatively close, 13, 14%. Registered nurses are 9%. Now the hospitals are a little bit different. More registered nurses at 26% versus nursing, psych, home, and health aid people, 7%, and EMT and paramedics, 5%. Moving into the other sections of this healthcare sector, the dental offices, as you see, majority of them are the dental assistants at 35%. The nursing facilities have actually nursing, psych, and home health care workers at 29%. And if you notice, registered nurses are only 9% in the nursing facilities. Now you contrast that to home health care. Nursing, psych, and home health aides again make up a large amount of that sector at 30%, with only registered nurses at about 11%. So as we see in part one, and just discussing the demographics, it's not surprising that this healthcare industry in California is a major driver of the workers' compensation costs over time. This week we explored the different sectors of our healthcare industry, and next week we will conclude this discussion when we discuss the loss and payroll experience within California's healthcare industry sector. So doctors, I'm Dr. Chris Rapoff, and I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to join me in this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to sharing the conclusion of this presentation next time as we continue to cover the topics as they relate to workers' compensation system in the state of California. Until next time, thank you.